Good afternoon, good evening, West Michigan. It is Friday, March 14th, and I'm meteorologist Will Haenni. Wanted to give you an update regarding our first opportunity for strong to severe storms of the season. This is going to be an overnight deal between about 2 and 7 in the morning for us locally. We're going to start off with a regional view of the severe weather outlook for today. Notice that area of red that encompasses a good portion of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, all the way down into portions of Mississippi, western Tennessee, very western Kentucky as well. That's a moderate risk, a risk category 4 of 5 for our friends farther south. That's where there's a much more potent or elevated risk of severe weather, including mostly straight line wind threat, but also long-lived tornadoes and potentially some violent tornadoes, especially kind of towards the southern edge of that as you work your way down towards Mississippi or say Tennessee into even Alabama into the overnight hours. That's for today/tonight, so Friday. That's the day one outlook, but that does include our round of severe storms potentially overnight. Now, this is the outlook for tomorrow. Not going to focus on this too much, but I do want to just highlight this. This is a somewhat rare, very significant setup for severe storms for our friends across the south central U.S. for tomorrow, including a good portion of Mississippi and Alabama. Keep them in your thoughts. This is a high risk, a risk category 5 out of 5. Those are fairly rare, fairly uncommon. We may only see one or two in a few years sometimes. So very potent severe weather risk for the south central U.S. for tomorrow. All right, so let's jump into what's happening right now. I'm recording this just before 5 o'clock, so it's like 4:40 right now on Friday afternoon. You can see some storms already developing across kind of the Kansas-Missouri border right now, Kansas City, under some severe thunderstorm warnings. Notice that entire line is severe warned, so those orange boxes extending all the way down that line of storms. That area of pink is a severe thunderstorm watch that's issued currently in effect. So what we're expecting is this line to eventually progress farther east and continue to strengthen. So here's a look at that with hour by hour here. This is all in Eastern time, I should note. So if by any chance you're watching this in Illinois or Missouri, subtract an hour from the timestamp. But by 9 o'clock Eastern or 8 o'clock Central, we'll have a pretty potent line of storms, that same line that's developing near Kansas City now, kind of dissecting portions of Missouri, Iowa, and progressing perhaps even into Illinois at that point. And as we go throughout the later evening hours, that line just kind of maintains its strength. And notice it gets that little bow shape to it. That's usually conducive of mostly a severe wind threat, which is definitely what's on the table for our friends farther southwest. I'm stopping here at 2 a.m. Now we're going to look at locally here in West Michigan. So we're picking up where we left off. Notice how we will not see storms between now and 2 a.m. It's after 2 a.m. that we see the greatest risk of storms. So this is our first kind of low-end risk for severe weather of the season. Between about 2 and 3 a.m., if we see warnings, I think that would be the most likely time frame where we may see a severe thunderstorm warning or two issued. I think the greatest risk is going to be initially east of Kalamazoo, but then does include portions of Van Buren County, Kalamazoo County, Berrien, Cass, and St. Joseph counties, which will show you that risk outlook in just a moment. But this is 3 a.m. Notice that line of storms continues to progress farther east, and I think it should, in theory, have a bit of a weakening trend as it does that. The thing is, though, it's not going to take a lot for some really significant winds to be kind of pulled down from just a few thousand feet aloft. So there's going to be some wind speeds over 50, 60 miles an hour, as little as like 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the surface of the earth. So what happens in these sort of environments, if you get some rain-cooled air kind of pulling some of that higher momentum wind down towards the ground, you can get some strong wind gusts in the caliber of like 55 to 65 miles an hour. I think initially as those storms are arriving closer to maybe 3 in the morning, that's our best chance at maybe even some isolated gusts over 70 miles an hour, which again, we'll touch on here momentarily. I do think we should have some heavier pockets of rain, some rumbles continuing through 5, 6 in the morning before most of the storms are exiting by around sunrise tomorrow. Now we should find dry time throughout much of the day, and we're still in the warm sector of the upper level low that's driving all of this weather. So we'll make a run again to about 70 degrees into the low 70s, I think, before possibly a secondary round of storms tomorrow afternoon into the evening. I think the best chance is going to be out towards I-69 and east, but this model here showing at least the chance of some storms as early as maybe even 2-3 in the afternoon. May have to adjust this graphic. So there's two opportunities here for storms. The first one overnight between 2 a.m. and 7 in the morning. That area of yellow, the greatest risk. Now for tomorrow between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m., that area of green that you see on that right graphic, that's a very low end risk for maybe some isolated gusty winds. The kicker, though, is that even outside of storms, tomorrow is going to be remarkably windy all day long. Some gusts probably pushing 50 to 55 miles an hour, area wide. Now, with this being an overnight round of severe storms, possibly, it's not a guarantee we're going to see warnings, but I think it's a good, bet we'll see at least maybe one or two. Always a good idea to just review your severe weather warning procedures this time of year, especially as we get into severe weather season. So make sure your mobile devices are plugged in as you go to bed tonight with those emergency alerts turned on. They should be by default on your mobile device, but just in case you've turned them off or something like that, I always recommend having those on. You should never rely on just one of these things, but I think the best one here that I've listed is a NOAA weather radio. Sounds archaic, I know, sounds old-fashioned. Something like, some of you are like, oh, my grandpa had a NOAA weather radio. You should have one too. They are really loud in an overnight event, and they are the best way to receive a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning. And while the tornado risk is remarkably low, it is non-zero. The wind gusts here on that chart, that line up top, 50 to 55 mile an hour gusts, looking fairly likely throughout much of the day tomorrow. So with that, we finally have the wind advisory and even a high wind watch issued farther south. So this basically is just semantics. Everyone has the potential for 50 to 55 mile per hour gusts throughout the day tomorrow. So outages are going to be possible even outside of thunderstorms. That's just raw wind gust potential. As we look ahead, we're trending colder and still breezy on Sunday with possibly some wet snowflakes in the mix. So our little kind of teaser of summer expires late tomorrow. We're right back to kind of where we should be for Sunday, and then a little bit more mild air returns for Monday. So just to kind of wrap up, this is again the breakdown of severe weather risks for tonight, 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. That area of yellow on the far left-hand side is the risk of damaging winds, a little bit more elevated than the risk of hail or tornadoes, but the threat of isolated tornado or isolated hail and maybe even a very short-lived spin-up style tornado can't be completely ruled out. But I do think east and southeast of Kalamazoo is most primed to see the greatest risk for gusty winds. Again, this is an overnight event, so we'll keep you updated. Any severe thunderstorm warnings we will be streaming on our Facebook page and YouTube. And I'll be here overnight with Colin Rogers tag teaming as these storms are arriving. So we'll keep you updated. Thanks so much for watching.